Why, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Innovantage Podcast, where business meets tech to bring you your competitive edge. As always, I'm your host, Max, and it is my ongoing job and duty to explore that tiny edge between business and tech and to find out how they are connected, if at all, and if anything is interesting going on lately between the two. Today's episode is a very interesting one. We are going to be viewing at innovation through the lens of defense, of security, of particular startups that are both dual use and military focused, that are built with the idea of, security in mind. And to help me on that journey is Edvinas Kerza, who is the managing partner for ScaleWolf and the Vice Minister of Defense, the former Vice Minister of Defense of Lithuania. So you know everything there is to know about security. So hi, Edvinas, welcome to the show.
Hi, Max. Maybe not everything, but
more than I do.
Spent a couple of decades in security sector, so let's talk on that.
Let's talk on that. So tell me a little bit about yourself, about your career. How did you end up where you ended up? Through politics, into private equity. So how does one even go that route?
Well, I was born when Lithuania was occupied, and already then I realized that I don't want my country to be under someone's supervision. I wanted to be independent, free, and was searching for many opportunities how this could be coming true. So very early I started doing some IT stuff, so went into technology very young and realized that this is on one hand very useful, interesting. On the other hand, might be something that could be very close to my purpose to support the country. And very early I joined Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and at that moment we did not have any chance to be NATO, EU yet. But very soon we've been invited to join those great organizations, and I was part of those who were sent to secret military bases to get more knowledge about security, defense, about hacking, about stealing information, because we had to protect ourselves. So luckily, I was one of those who was building those secret networks in all over the country and in our diplomatic missions. And that's why I think I was one of those experienced who was selected to go to Brussels and do presidency when Lithuania first did that. 2013. Oh my God, 12 years ago. Yeah, and then again, being lucky, I was invited to join my Minister of Defense, and I was, as you said, Deputy Minister of Defense, responsible for cybersecurity, defense planning, and budget. So at that moment, €1 billion budget. That's how I was selected, and then got a chance to learn more and deep about our adversaries, about aggressors, about countries that are wishing bad things to those who love freedom and enjoy that. And probably that's where I learned that we have some issues that needs to be solved.
So what were then the top issues that you would focus on throughout your career as a minister?
Well, first of all, very early we recognized that we are not very right saying that we are advanced military and technology countries, because Crimea annexion in 2014 showed that hybrid warfare is coming and we are not ready. We don't have anything how we can protect our networks. And at that moment, Russia started financing criminal groups and hacker groups who created really great stuff to steal information, and even non-commercial antivirus systems could detect that. So something had to be done, and we started searching for scientists and smart people who could counterfight that, and we realized that it's not so easy. So being unexperienced, I would say, but on the other hand, willing to solve the issue, we started learning from other countries like Israel, like United States, like UK. What do? How they fight that? And that was the kickoff of innovation in defense in my life.
It's a very interesting point in time to be in. Like, it feels like it's hard for me to relate to that 100%, but basically, like, from the fall of the Soviet Union, Lithuania was left to its own devices finally after such a long time, right? and there was so much work for you to do, and so many ideas that you could explore, and so many other countries that you could learn from. Maybe there are some particular lessons that stand out in your mind that you like come back to throughout the years. That's, like that was the best one that I've learned.
What I've learned that after Second World War, our countries felt into comfort zone.
Hmm.
We were creating innovation technologies because we wanted our life to become easier, more productive maybe, more joyful, but never safer. You see, we built internet, but we never thought it to be secure. We created critical infrastructure I'm talking about energy producing companies, about water pumps, and they were meant to provide electricity but not to be secure. And when suddenly we connected all those devices and equipments to internet, we understood that adversaries use that and they can use modern tools to do bad things. So my first understanding was that we are not secure because we did not prepare for that. We did not believe that someone would like to fight in this modern life and would like to have some, I don't know, war activities. And then suddenly we had to wake up because adversary was near our door, right?
Yeah.
Military actions were happening very close, and even now they're still ongoing, and the world cannot solve this issue. So, obviously, countries like Lithuania, other Baltic states, Finland had to do something as we were facing borders so close to the aggressor.
So then, what ultimately led to your decision to transition from politics into the private sector?
Well, in general, I think I managed to reach my goals. I was really high ranked position officer, and I thought, why not to get more experience on what the business side looks like and what critical infrastructure looks like, so that I better understand how else we could be useful in defending that, into putting more effort. So first I moved to critical infrastructure in energy sector, which is Ignitis Group, the biggest energy company in the region. Railways with a huge experience about how to modernize that, because still in Lithuania we were using Soviet Union created things in our railway systems, and of course they were not secure enough.
Sure.
And then preparing to kick off a new approach, how we can hunt for great people, civilians mainly, give some education, give some money, give some problem sets, and help them to solve those problem sets. And then if we see that they are successful, why not to invest and help them do the business in the defense sector?
Sure. Uh, like I feel that I already know the answer to this question, but I want to ask anyway. Like, why the defense sector specifically when you go private? The field is so long. I understand that your experience probably influenced that decision a little bit, but still, it's interesting for me to find out.
We'll be very frank. Really, I had a rare opportunity to know more than regular civilian knows, right?
Sure.
When you work for government, when you are in such a position, you read secrets, you know more, right? And this was not something that I liked. This was very challenging, and I thought that, hey, we have a problem, guys. We are not doing good enough. So I decided to learn more from others' experience how we could create modern technologies and innovations to defend ourselves in case the day when aggressor would like to come happens, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly I understood another thing, that, hey, most of innovations that we see in our daily life were created by militaries. The internet, I told, was created by military.
Yeah.
Microwave was created by military when they were creating radars, and suddenly the scientist understood that a candy melted in his pocket, right? T-shirt, sunglasses, super glue, cans, name it, everything was created in military. And then we adopted it to civil life. So I thought, hey, you can do business, you can have well-paid jobs, right? So you can attract people to return maybe back to Lithuania and settle down, even if you're not Lithuanian, if you're a citizen from friendly country and would like to do business in defense sector, which is something new for our country. Although in other countries like Norway, it's a, I don't know, couple of 100 years old segment, and in Lithuania it's quite new.
True, true. So what led you then to specifically working in a fund and focusing on startups? Because I'm guessing there's a lot of technology that is already out there that you can just contribute to already developing, like just general cybersecurity, for example. But why startups?
So the answer consists two very important things. First, I've learned in Ministry of Defense that it is not enough to kick off an innovation project. Kind of, hey, let's build a theoretical model if that can be done. It does not simply work because, yeah, you can give a grant, kind of, I don't know, a couple of €1,000, and people might find out that this is possible to do. But how to hire more people, how to get mentors involved, how to scale up the business. You need the whole system. And then I understood that this hybrid model where you put acceleration services up front because you teach people, right? You give them specific knowledge about defense sector because it's slightly different than in civil life. There's no B2C, B2 customers, right? Or it's less B2B. It's mostly B2G. You work with governments, militaries, critical infrastructure. So you need to understand the client. So you need to learn things. But then you need specific knowledge from military, from specialists who were serving in conflict zones. How do you get that? So you need to go to polygons, you need to meet people who have this information. But then there is a very important part, it's called capital. How can you scale? Where do you find €100,000 check? How do you get €1,000,000 check, right? Because now you understood that the product or innovation is working, but you need to make it better. You need to adapt to the client needs. And that's where risk capital comes. Because normally, none of commercial bank would give you a loan. You probably will not have this amount in your bank account. So how can you get if there are no sources in the country?
Of course, of course. But at the same time, looking at it through the lens of security, a lot of those funds can come from an outside source, like outside of Lithuania, for example. How do you see that? Is that like a vulnerability of this model or more or less a strength where kind of, you get more investments into the country at the end?
Couple of things. When we were starting building the funds, it was 4 or 5 years ago. At that moment, many people were not sure that it's a proper investment to be done into defense sector, right?
Sure.
So at that moment, they would treat you as a prostitution, gambling, and drugs, probably. So not many would be willing to invest into defense. So that's first thing. So it was very important to convince government to invest into our fund so we then can invest into defense companies. And luckily, government and Ministry of Defense believe that this is a good model. Then, of course, we understand that there might be some threats upcoming because of wrong influence, because of unclear financial sources. So we have the right to clarify and to kind of get support from government and intelligence to verify if those financial instruments, startups, investors meet Lithuanian national security requirements. So that's how you mitigate the risk that someone would like to steal your information, like whatever adversary, or that some bloody money would come into the company that has good reputation.
Okay, that's very interesting, because I've talked to fund managers beforehand, both local ones and international ones, and I think the level of due diligence that they do for their startups is Well, I wouldn't say low, but it's definitely lower than what you're describing. So there isn't as much scrutiny as to where the money comes from and who gets the benefits from that particular money. So can you maybe delve a little bit more into detail as to how that selection process works? So what are those norms and standards that you talked about?
Well, first of all, what do? We do pre-acceleration activities. So we, in general, need to understand whether those people fit the market, fit the idea, are they feeling comfortable by, I don't know, working in defense?
Yeah.
And with that initial information they get, are they happy, right? So in this stage, we're kind of acknowledging who is who. We're building teams, we're getting initial information and mentorship. But then when we form companies, right, this is kind of game changer. So we got positive feedback from business, from clients. We understand that you are good enough to solve the problem and you have the idea how to do that. So now you need to get capital, which is investment. But before that, we need to be sure that you are compatible with national security requirements. So we will check everything: beneficial owners, other investors, partners, relatives, relationships. Because if you have something in a gray zone, that would not work. And we will not get a permission to invest into such company. And this means that level of risk is too high for our fund.
Makes
It might
sense.
be a very good business idea, it might be a good business model, but the risk level is too high.
Hmm. That's an interesting kind of this tight road that you need to walk, right? Where you have to find those business ideas worth investing in, but at the same time, they still have to be in the kind of the safe zone where you're safe investing into them.
And it's all clear why, because if you lose your reputation, you will lose all your clients. There is no second shot or second try. If you do something wrong, you will not be allowed to receive permissions to work with secrets. And I will remind you that probably half of tenders, public tenders, are closed type tenders because military deals with secrets.
Yeah.
And this means you need to have very good reputation. So if you lose that, you will not be available, and those tenders will not be available for you. So if you don't have tenders, you don't have clients, you cannot do business.
Is tenders a good source, a valuable source for startups, or is it only for more mature businesses?
Actually, there are two ways. On one hand, you search for various grant programs, being a young startup and especially in defense, so that innovation agency, Ministry of Defense would pay you some amount of money to verify if your idea works, right?
Yeah.
But then you should search for bigger partners, and I think one of our strengths is that we open doors to big companies like Rheinmetall, Lockheed Martin, Airbus, Kongsberg, Namo, Patria, name it, who are active in the region. So they become a small part in a bigger game
Hmm.
because those guys already have clients, they have reputation, they have processes, procedures, they understand what needs to be delivered to militaries. And normally, what they need is partnership, especially nowadays, because they cannot match all contracts, right? Every country raises up their budgets, their spendings to defense. So new capabilities had to be placed on time and in bigger scale.
Hmm. So then, when it comes to any particular projects that you've already invested in, are there any that stand out to you for any reason or the other that you can talk about, that you can share?
You mean sectors?
Sectors, specific companies, like depending on how detailed you can go.
Well, we have a variety of topics, starting from drones, cybersecurity, intelligence, but also Lithuania is quite well known by laser technology. So we have a laser company who tries to solve an issue that you need to do a precise targeting on your enemy. So they create a very small laser that can be put on a drone system, and then you don't need to send a jet, for example, which is very expensive, and your enemy can easily track it. When we talk about drone systems, so we have manufacturers who fly in a very I would say, difficult conditions where jammers are always on and you need to do intelligence, but you always face this jamming and you cannot operate on GPS signals. So you need more sophisticated way how you do the route of your flight, how you detect targets. And that's where artificial intelligence comes in. That's where specific communication systems come in. And I think our engineering is quite good. Also, I'm glad that Lithuanian software developers showed their potential because they started working with some software implementations even for space operation management because it's quite expensive to modulate some operations up in the sky, and it is quite wise to prepare some things down here on the ground, so it's more cheap then.
Makes sense.
We understood that person is so important and his mental and physical conditions should be also kept in mind. So we invested into technologies that help soldiers to concentrate, to deal with stress situation, to deal with overhype, because they every day feel huge stress because they see battle conditions, they lose friends, they need to kill people, right? And this is not easy
Yeah.
to live with. On the other hand, they might be wounded, and support and help and hospitals are not available like for us in civil life, right? So they need to have modern medicine that would help to stop bleeding, to heal wounds easier. So we invested into a couple of that technology manufacturers. What else? I think very interesting technologies upcoming in demining, because one of our teams looked a little bit deeper, not only to kind of guess that there is a mine,
Mm-hmm.
but to draw what is under the ground.
Mm.
So then you can be more sure whether it's a piece of metal or it's a mine or what type of mine. Is it a plastic one, a metal one? And then you can use this technology for other, for example, tasks like uh, metal detection, like archaeological exploration, or or other tasks when you explore the underground facilities. Interesting thing came up with high technologies in neuron life, because
Mm.
we know that chips is something that is very valuable and sometimes not accessible to most of the world because the highest concentration is in the United States, and those modern graphical chips are not simply available for us. So we invested into neurons so they could be kind of supporting those chips and with less power consumption help to do calculations even more fast.
All right.
So I'm pretty sure very soon we will be talking about first European AI, neural AI data center somewhere here close.
Oh, wow. Here close. With our costs for electricity, that would be one expensive data center, I think.
It will be much less expensive because neurons use 10 times less electricity than normal
Oh, wow.
technology. And if we put on top AI and make this data center smart,
Mhm.
then we can have a very good model with cost effective pricing.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting and an important thing in terms of infrastructure, where for the longest time, everybody was used to this kind of global approach where you have like servers in China, people in the
Mhm.
US working on something that a team here has come up with, right? Everybody was so interconnected, so easily relied upon each other, and so on and so forth. But nowadays, I feel that that kind of goes away a little bit to numerous factors, from the very simple ones, the geopolitical situation currently surrounding us, and not only us, to more complex things of, supply chains and so on and so forth. So kind of having your own end-to-end infrastructure becomes more and more important, I feel, specifically for Europe to kind of be more closer to itself, I guess. Is that something that you also see happening, or is...
Absolutely. Well, what I see that we already lost some competitive advantage
Hmm.
because we outsourced many our factories and very modern technologies somewhere to
Yeah.
third countries. And at that time might be kind of useful decision and even a good business model, but then you understand that you lost your identity, your technology, you don't have innovation in your hand, you don't have IP in your
Yeah.
hands. So now you are buying, you are not exporting anything, you are not creating the value.
Yeah.
So what we did now, we changed our attitude and said, hey, let's rebuild it, right? We already have great technologies upcoming. Now let's think on how they could be used and implemented somewhere here. So we have our own supply chain, our own and technology created and independently created in friendly countries. So we can deal with those risks that raise from security perspective. We don't depend on unfriendly countries. And then we are sure that those businesses will be using those services. So the old Europe would stand again. And with that defense investment perspective, I believe they would boost this ecosystem by putting great technology that first will be created for military use, but when the war is over, they will be shifted for civilian use.
Hmm. So that's a very nice segue into this whole topic. You've touched on it a little bit in the beginning and now as well. So, technologies that are first developed for military use and then transition into civilian use. And yeah, like what you said is definitely the truth. A lot of our modern conveniences were born first as military technology, and that has been the driving force of innovation for like all of humans' history, basically. You want something new, like you have to first convince people to want to kill each other, I guess. But
Mm.
what can you do, right? That's the place where a lot of that innovation happens. But at the same time, right now there is a whole segment called the dual use segment, where technologies are being made with the idea that the technology can be used for both military and civil. So, how do you look at the dual use, I don't know, industry or type of startup or type of company?
I think nowadays most of technologies can be called dual use. And for the purpose to diversificate markets, you should work on a technology that, of course, at this stage should be tested and created for defense sector, but without minor changes could be reused to do good thing for civilian side.
Hmm.
And we can get some very quick examples. Let's say drone systems, right?
Yeah.
Actually, first they were created for civilians, right?
Yeah, that's
For
a very
children and for
rare
uh,
exception.
photographs and cinema things, and that's great, right? But then suddenly they saw, okay, it can be used as a weapon, right? And it can be a multi-purpose weapon. And sometimes maybe you don't need very expensive rocket systems. You can use cheap drones. But then what happened that step by step those drones became very smart, right? Autonomous, flying, detecting. And I'm pretty sure that in the near future, when those autonomous cabs will be flying, taxis will be flying, they will be equipped with those algorithms and those software technologies and electronic technologies that help those autonomous flights to be made,
Hmm.
right? And even now, you don't need to look so far, but let's say one of our companies, yes, they sell drones to militaries, but now critical energy infrastructure bought those drones because of autonomous uh, pipelines and electricity cable detections.
Hmm.
Because, when there is a storm, when a lot of snow falls down, there might be some damages to the infrastructure. And for a person, it might be even impossible to get to the wood or to whatever place where it is difficult to see what is damaged. But the drone can fly autonomously, it can get a route, it can do detection, and then transfer that information to the center saying, hey, look, there is whatever electricity line which might be in danger because there is a whatever tree falling down on those cables. So now send some, I don't know, people and repair that, right?
Yeah, that also highlights a very interesting and important part, I feel, is the data. So how much of it do you have? How much of it can you use? How much of it is collected by, well, by you at the end of the day? Because I feel that everything that you've said about kind of the economy of innovation, basically what you produce versus what you buy versus what you import, the same can be applied to data, because you can collect that data on your own using your own drones that you have built and you have supplied to somebody else, and then utilize that data to create a flying car, for example. Or, you can go to Elon Musk and buy some data so that Elon Musk can then create his own flying car, and you just kind of the middleman that will help him get there in the end to enrich his data. So, is that a factor that you consider when you're evaluating startups or when you're working on more kind of defense projects, or is data less important than kind of the technology itself?
I see it as two different questions actually.
Okay, let's separate.
Data in general became one of the most valuable things, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, you need to have data to understand what is business potential. On the other hand, a lot of AI algorithms need to be trained first. So you need to provide some data, whatever, for simulations, right?
Yeah.
Is it a flight? Is it a recognition? Is it something else? You need to train. So this algorithm needs to get some experience before it can take part in whatever real actions.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when you are a very early stage startup, it's not that the idea itself is so important. For us, the most important is the composition of the team.
Hmm.
Are you capable to work in this sector, right?
Yeah.
Do you have skills? Do you like it? Can you solve issues? Or you will collapse when you face first challenge, because it's not easy. When you start from scratch, from white page, you will always face ups and downs, and it might happen that you will start with one technology, one product, but you will end with absolutely different. And when you look back, you say, oh my god, I would never believe I would end up with that thing we've now created and that we're providing to our customers. So team would be probably number one we would look into. That's why this pre-acceleration phase for us is so important.
Hmm.
And that's why probably only few lessons we have online and most we have physical.
Hmm.
So spending time together, doing workshops, arguing, looking for what is missing in the team. Do we need some skill sets or additional training? Do we need mentorship, or do we need some additional people who
Hmm.
have skills and experience? Because you might be a very good scientist but have no business skills, right?
Easy.
Or a good technician, 2 technicians, 3 technicians, but is that enough to be a successful company, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So first you need to build that part, and then only look into what problem set you should work on. Because what we do, we solve issues, problems. There are many of them in military, in governmental sector.
Yeah.
So we take something and see what is the best way to deal with that. And then we look into the market and the timing. Is it the correct time to solve this issue in that way? Because sometimes you can create a technology which is great, which is very innovative, but market is not ready. Military is not ready. They don't have skills. Their equipment, their capabilities cannot be upgraded in that way,
Yeah.
right? And separately, it's good, but being part of the capability, it's useless. And then you need to rethink by taking something different.
Yeah. Pivoting always helps,
Absolutely.
especially in such a high-paced environment. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. What is your then ideal team composition where you're looking at a new startup that is going through pre-acceleration or maybe already finished pre-acceleration? Like your ideal team that has some sort of technology, what does that look like?
Depends case by case, and every person is different.
Sure.
Some people have couple of skills and experiences, and especially in defense sector, what I noticed that more experienced people are coming, nor younger who are just doing first steps in universities or in businesses.
Yeah.
So usually they already know how companies work, how corporates work, what processes are, what does it mean marketing. But normally, yes, of course, you would always love to have a CTO, which is a technical guy, because in most cases it will be hardware.
Yeah.
But then they will be part of software because all hardware now is interconnected with software, with something that is smart enough to control that piece of whatever technology is. Then someone should deal daily on raising capital by promoting your company, by telling an investor why you are better than the competitor is.
Yeah.
So this is something not easy because risk capital, venture capital is a model that you need to understand. What does it mean to raise money? What is a pre-seed? How it differs from seed, whatever Series A? What is tag along meaning, and what does the bad lever does, right? Which is something new to those engineers and scientists. So someone has to dig into that and then translate to the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you will be facing the moment when you will be scaling. And this is something that not many teams can do because you need to do it very fast. And someone needs to understand how to put processes in place, how to do automation, how to deal with organization structure. So HR is unrolling actually, because if you were previously kind of a team of 5 people, now you probably have 50, and by the end of the year you'll have 100 people. So you need a structure,
Yeah.
and you need senior people who would lead you. You would need to kind of trust them and allow them to do part of the business. So you will be growing as a team during that process, and if you start at the beginning of engineer, scientist, maybe business person, then you will see how your team is growing, and different experiences are entering the
Basically,
team.
like the correct seeds that you put into a soil, and then it kind of sprouts into different directions, and you'll have a beautiful bouquet of flowers in the end. Yeah, okay, yeah, balance, I guess. Then balance and kind of appropriate skill set for the task at hand, I guess. Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve versus what you cannot do or can do? So, if you're trying to build a piece of hardware, and you know nothing about hardware, then even if you're the best at software, like, then why build hardware, right? Why not focus on the software? Okay, okay. Coming back a little bit to the dual use question, talking about like dual use versus like defense focused or civilian focused, doesn't matter. To your eye, does one have preference over the other? So, if two similar projects, one is dual use and the other one is more focused, do you like lean towards one or the other, or is it just very, very situational?
I'm not sure if there is one answer to that question because different teams have different experiences. Some feel very comfortable when they focus on one direction and they do the job.
Yeah.
But the issue with defense, and especially if you are a small team and company, is that you are very much dependent on the client. And it is not so easy to find them. Not many militaries will open doors so easily.
Yeah,
So
especially
if
right
you
now.
suddenly lose a contract or suddenly the war ends, right? What will you do? How will you do R&D? How will you pay salaries? What will you do with your technology? So that's why we believe that it is always good to have a plan B. okay, so I'm not changing the technology in general, right? Understand how it works, but how should I shift it to another side, whether it's civilian or defense, right?
Mm.
So that's exactly what happened with one of our companies, Pulsetto. They were working on civilian market, helping people with their gadget to deal with stress and to stimulate vagus nerve, who controls our body, and to deal with difficult situations in your life, and sport people love this technology. And when we saw that military people face even more stress and even more difficult situations, we said, hey, don't change anything, just integrate and adopt it to the war conditions.
Mm.
Because when people stay in the trench, when people fight, they also need support. And when they come back from the fire, they need to kind of get to normal condition, if that's even possible, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even today, I was talking with one colleague who has a lot of experience in Israeli conflict. So he says the same. People who are returning from those zones, they face very difficult situations and they need support.
True. True. Unfortunately, that's kind of the ugly side to any conflict. There's a lot of people that are influenced by it and then need help reintegrating into normal life, whatever that may be, even if it's possible for some, it may not be. So yeah, then my question would be regarding like the global interconnectedness that we have mentioned, right? Where you're always an actor in a much bigger stage, especially Lithuania. Lithuania is a relatively small country with relatively few resources. How do you see kind of Lithuania becoming maybe a hub for defense and security? So you've mentioned already the data center, but maybe there's something more towards the people themselves. Like, how do you attract people more towards Lithuania rather than people moving out of it somewhere else?
Well, I look into that as a system.
Mm.
So ScaleWolf was the first program to launch in the region. So Lithuania made a decision, it changed the law, it made it happen, right? So it was a signal to everyone, hey, if you have an idea to work in defense sector, why not to try to do this in Lithuania? After a couple of periods, we noticed that yes, it was a good decision, but we have challenges because the legislation system itself was not prepared.
Mm.
So again, government did a lot of effort to change it and adopt it. So now you can not even get capital, but get a permission to start building your facility without official permission. You can get a green corridor, which is cashback of your investment with good tax initiatives, right? You are now more friendly to invite foreigners to come and work into your companies because, let's say, it's a very rare specialty and you need that. Then you can easier deal with banks in Lithuania. So ecosystem in general became more friendly over those 3 or 4 years. And our last cohort, when we did acceleration activities, showed that foreigners liked this idea. And now we have teams that came to Lithuania from Canada, US, Germany, Ukraine, Latvia, Estonia. So what they did, they received training, they received capital, they opened a company in Vilnius, and they started doing business here. So it shows it's a good place to be. So why not to be a hub?
Well, the way you describe it, it does sound great, but I'm guessing that there are some hurdles that people need to overcome in actual to do it. So what are the typical problems that companies face when starting out here versus like, for example, Silicon Valley? Because I feel that if you talk to like your average, I don't know, like programmer or software developer, if you ask them like, what do you think about like raising some funds there? Well, I will go to Silicon Valley and find some money there.
True.
That's like,
Easier.
Like that's, the
Easier.
branding is there at the very least. So how do you convince somebody like that, like to stay here, and what are the kind of typical problems that they may face?
Well, first question we deliver to the person, not a company, not a team, to a person. Are you ready for this ecosystem?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really feel good in defense sector? Are you comfortable to hold a weapon and shoot? It's very important. I met many teams who came to our activities and started, learning, but then they very quickly understood that, oh my God, it's not to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you sit somewhere far from front line, from those events that happen straight away, you don't feel that heat and fire. But being here, you can completely understand the situation. Where are you getting into?
Yeah.
So this is very important because you will invest a lot of energy, you will invest money, you will have obligations, you will have team. And if you don't realize into what kind of situation are you getting, it might be a problem later on. If you think that you will be creating a technology and you will not go to the front line to test it, you're wrong. So even if you have a very solid, investment somewhere in a very safe, secure place, it's not enough. Probably it simply will not fly
Mm.
in the front line. And if it will not fly in the front line, you will not sell it ever. Because every military unit will ask, is it battle proofed? Right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have this answer, you are in a trouble, although you spend a lot of money from investors, right?
True.
And I saw many, many teams and products who failed. They tried, but they failed, although they had a better finance proposal in their countries. On the other hand, in here, you have a very sophisticated accelerator program. So it is created especially to very quickly deliver all knowledge to the team that is related with defense.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn from others' experience, from mentors, you meet militaries, you give questions, you get answers, just here and now. And those militaries are usually coming straight from those units. They are experienced, they know what they saw, and they can deliver that information to you, which is the biggest value. It's even more valuable than money.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, I was visiting Ukraine and I was visiting polygons. I was looking into their system, into their capabilities. And I'm very frank with you. What I see physically visiting them and what is written in Facebook and news channels, it's sometimes 180% opposite direction. So if you do your business or you think you're doing your business with right information while it is not so,
Mm-hmm.
you will fail.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter how much money will you have. On the other hand, in the region, in Baltic region, Poland and now Finland and Sweden, I know a lot of funds started new activities and started investing into startups. So it's not the case like it was 5 years ago. Now you can build around. You can, I think, from initial stage to Series A, you can easily get what money is needed for you. So it means that you don't need to spend kind of a year by hunting for a, I don't know, 2 million euro check or whatever, 5 million euro check. If you're good enough, they will find you and you will find those resources. Just be a little bit patient. Also, you're very close to the front line where you can test, and then you will not make so many mistakes. So you will not spend so much money on learning.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that in the startup world, there is this culture of, we'll figure it out. Like you don't have to be a taxi driver to build an Uber, like a company like Uber, right? You need to understand the technology, you need to understand microdynamics, but you don't have to have that hands-on experience a lot of the time. And I feel that a lot of startup founders do not. Some do, and it of course helps, but as you tell it here in kind of in the military space, that experience is crucial, or at least that kind of willingness to get that experience, to get your hands
Knowledge,
dirty.
mainly knowledge, right?
Knowledge, yeah.
what's working, what's not. And this knowledge can be received only from people who have this experience or by yourself being physically on the front line.
Yeah. Well, that creates a lot of barriers for entry from a pure like business standpoint, from a capitalist standpoint. You have a bunch of money that you want to invest somewhere. Where do you invest it? But at the same time, like it creates kind of a walled garden at the same time. So an infrastructure that is very interconnected, the situations that are kind of supporting each other. And once you're in there, like you are immediately much more supported than somebody from another industry. At least that's what I see and hear, like from what you say. It's an interesting situation. I've never sold to like governments or the military myself, so I'm like a pure B2B person. All my life, I've always been that. But it is a very interesting contrast hearing you talk about it, like how the rules are a bit different, but significantly so at the same time.
And let's keep in mind one more thing: competition is huge.
Mm,
And another insight that is for me very clear now, that if you are not fighting, you will not create a very modern technology or whatever capability. So if you will not create it, you will not sell it. And now a lot of Ukrainian startups and companies are in a very good shape because over those 3.5 years, they were learning and they were very close to their military. They received feedback very quickly, although they did not have enough capital, but they were creating solutions. And sometimes, yes, they are not so fancy as we're used to,
yeah.
but they simply work. And if you receive additional capital, you can make it quite look good and sell it a battle proven technology versus you are somewhere far away, kind of it looks better, but it looks better on a PowerPoint, but not in the battlefield, right? And then at the end of the day, they will raise probably less capital, you will raise more, but you will not be able to get clients
Yeah.
because who will buy that technology from you? So a new wave of competition is upcoming because now those companies from Ukraine, they started looking for various possibilities to settle down in NATO EU countries,
Yeah.
and for many reasons. First of all, they understand that NATO market is waiting, right? Uh, Countries from NATO are willing to upgrade their technologies because normally they are outdated. And why not to buy that technology that was created specifically in the Ukraine-Russian war?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's also an important kind of note and the source of innovation of, like immigrants. I don't know how else to call them, like people coming in with their own ideas, settling down and contributing those ideas to the overall ecosystem. That is doubly beneficial in the military space, I feel, because that's, like you said, it's an advantage that your enemy does not get.
Mm.
If you're in business, you work with competitors, not enemies. But in the military, you're trying to work against your enemies, and it's a completely different ball game, I feel.
Well, another feelings are added to this because you feel patriotic, you feel threat.
Oh yeah.
So there is additional motivation to do your best because you're not creating this capability or technology because you want to become more rich. First of all, you kind of invest into your own security. And you understand that if your technology will be modern enough, will be used by your military, by your allies, you will have more chance to live in a free, independent country, and even maybe deter those aggressors so the war does not come to your house.
Yeah, yeah. That's an admirable goal for many, I feel. So let's then talk a little bit about the future. So you've had a long, storied career. You have seen a lot. You have seen the evolution of Lithuania's defense from nothing into what it currently is, and you have supported many startups that are working on their own niches. So moving forward, what do you think like the defense ecosystem will look like for Lithuania, for example?
I would talk about the region because I see that good examples are watched by other countries also.
Yeah.
And as I said previously, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, everyone actually around is looking more serious how to support their startups, their young companies, so they create more innovative solutions. So I think over a couple of years we will see new big companies coming out of those startups
Yeah.
because now they will receive huge contracts, and those who deal really well will have a unique chance to invest solid amount of money into R&D, into technologies that help soldiers. So besides those names we used to know, right, who maybe are living for 100 and 200 years, we will see companies who are quite young, 5, 7 years old only, but for some reason they are valued now a lot, and then they attract a lot of capital, and we see that is happening at the moment.
Yeah.
And this will be very important because they will be delivering well-paid working places, and I'm just wondering what will happen next with them. What will be their future path? Will they be purely military manufacturing, or will they go to civil market? Will they find something we don't know yet? Maybe space will become something that is still under investigation, because I think only a couple of countries around the world are good in space, like China and US, of course. But Europe is still missing this chance. So I'm pretty sure that we should try to explore more possibilities in there. And eventually, when the war will be over, we will need to see how those technologies could be adopted into our daily life. Even now, look, AI is doing great job by optimizing processes on one hand, but on another hand, big companies say, okay, so maybe we don't need so much people working for us because many of those processes can be automated by AI tools, right?
Yeah.
But on another hand, it means that we need people with skills who deal with AI processes and models. So this shift from what we knew yesterday and what we need to know tomorrow will be very important. So we will need to get new kind of experience and qualification to deal with future technologies that will be definitely implementing our way of living in the near future. And then I'm wondering, will Europe awake and understand that they lost competitive advantage in manufacturing in many areas,
Mhm.
from plastic to modern high technologies, chips and whatever
Yeah.
resources and so on, because now we need specific components and we can't get it because they are not available in Europe anymore, because we were so much concentrated on green technology, on something that adds value. We were living in a comfort zone, but not thinking that what will happen when we will get older, like a country, like a continent, like a business, and what will happen with our economy when we will stop exporting, when we will be dependent on other big countries who are kind of dictating the trend.
Hmm. So then, what kind of technologies would you say are worth investing in? Which ones are the future, or maybe the future?
I'm pretty sure high tech is trend number one, and software and new type of intelligences. Now we say it's AI. Previously, we knew it like a uh, let's say computer science technologies. probably in the near future, we will already be talking about quantum computing. So, whatever high technology it is, we should invest now, not now, yesterday, right? So, we should open new scientific programs in universities. We should help those scientists to get new qualifications, to build communities with other countries, with other friendly continents, so that we have this advantage in our hands. And then the dump manufacturing, sorry, but that's very important. If you don't have it, again, you are dependent. If you are dependent, you cannot, go forward. So we need to rethink our strategy. Is it okay that manufacturing capabilities are getting less and less every year in Europe? For example, batteries, right? We now say our vehicle manufacturers are facing problems in Europe because they don't have competitive advantage in pricing with Chinese manufacturers. Yes, but why? Because all or main battery manufacturing happens where? In China. And all new technologies are being invented where? In same China.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be able to gain our competitive advantage back without becoming China along the way, but we will see.
I would love to say that we need to have a healthy competition. It helps. It helps to build businesses, to find new ways of innovations, to find better way of living, and of course protect ourselves and be kind of in the first row with best in the world.
Yeah, that's a very good note that I believe a lot of people can get behind. So thank you, Edvinas. Thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for giving me insights into how the military tech space works. So where do people find you? Where can people read more about your thoughts, about your adventures, about the latest projects that you do?
ScaleWolf.vc is the probably easiest way to find us. But also, please go to various events. And this is for real. Innovation Agency does a good job. Ministry of Defense also has many initiatives. Lithuanian military is much more open nowadays. So you can get information and mentorship on hackathons that happen every year. And normally every autumn, you can get those activities in Kaunas together with Rifleman Union, which is absolutely great organization to be part of, but also to partner with if you want to create something and you think you have an idea, but you just need some support and mentorship from them.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all as well for tuning in and listening to us talk. If you liked what you've heard here today, leave us a like and tell us why. If you didn't like it, maybe don't leave a dislike. It has been turned off on YouTube, so you don't have that. But you can leave a comment and you can tell us why didn't you like it and what we can do in the next one to make ourselves a little bit better. And so on and so forth. And yada, yada, yada. I hope the algorithm likes me if I continue talking about buttons and stuff. But other than that, thanks for listening to us. Do get in touch. Do try and build your next big idea. And see you in the next one.